I'm going to ask several questions, many of them, because your case is very, very interesting. My first question is, Todd, tell me please about yourself and about your school.
Sure. My name is Todd Covert. I am the head of school at Berkshire Montessori School in Western Massachusetts. We are a toddler through 8th grade Montessori School, founded in 2006 by my wife and I. What else do you want to know?
How many pupils do you have? How many employees do you have?
Okay. So yes, we have about 135 students ranging from 15 months up through 8th grade. Employees, we have about 26 full-time employees. And they range from our teachers, who we call guides, our lead teachers that are trained in Montessori philosophy. We have assistants for each classroom. We also have 5 administrators as well. So pretty full school, which is good. Yeah.
I know that there are many Montessori schools. Why your school is different from others?
Other Montessori schools.
Yep.
We're the only Montessori school in the Berkshires, which is extreme Western Massachusetts. And within Montessori, the two big training organizations it's Association Montessori International, AMI, and AMS, American Montessori Society. And so we lean more toward the AMI model. But both of those two organizations have a pretty similar philosophy as far as Montessori pedagogy and philosophy go. We're all kind of working toward the same thing. So, we don't really differentiate ourselves from any other school around us, because a Montessori school around us, because we're really the only one in our kind of smallish community here in the Berkshires.
Mm-hmm. To be head of school and to have school as a business, it's not very it's unusual business, right? How you get this idea? Why you decided to have this business?
Well, my just about 21-year-old daughter was born back in 2003. My wife grew up going to a Montessori school that her parents ran in Tennessee. And so our first daughter was born in 2003. Megan and I were both involved with education in the area. We started to think about what we were going to do with our child, or, future children, and got together with like-minded people who wanted to see Montessori in this area. And everybody was kind of waiting for someone to do something about that. And so we, for some reason, said that we would start a school. So we did. We started a school in as many Montessori schools start in, like, shopping centers or storefronts, or anything that you can find that's easily accessible and already built. And so we started in something like that in 2006. We were able to, we started as a for-profit entity. We transitioned to a nonprofit, so we're a 501c3 organization now as of 2008, and started doing some fundraising. We found some land, built a new building back in 2009, and then added on to that building in 2014-15. So now we have our own campus sitting on 25 acres in the town of Lenox, Massachusetts.
Wow. It's a huge progress.
Yeah, we've had great reception in the area. A lot of people, our graduates now are out. They went through high school and college, and now they're out in the workforce. So it's really neat to see what they're doing. And so we've over the years, we've gained a lot of traction as far as again, Megan and I were not starting kind of our own school. We were bringing a philosophy that's been around for over 100 years to this area. So
Mhm.
that's a difference, right? It's not the Megan and Todd school. It's Montessori. We just happen to be the ones kind of bringing it here.
Mhm. Todd, let me ask you this question. You decided to apply Kanban Zone and Kanban method, right? Which top three problems you tried to solve by Kanban method and Kanban Zone solution?
Well, I'm a big systems thinker. Always have been. As far as a social style, I'm an analytic, so I'm the kind of person who I could think all day about something and not really do anything about it. So very, very could be, could fall into the problem area of paralysis by analysis. So for me personally, the idea around Kanban and therefore Kanban zone was really being able to map out and make things visual for myself as opposed to keeping things in my head swirling around. And as soon as you start doing that, for me, I could see like, oh, we're gonna do something this way. I can plan it all out. I can let it helps people. Well, when we first started using it, really help people to see and understand the way I think. Um, and therefore then they could better understand it and then apply the way they think to it, as opposed to feeling like they just can't keep up with the way um, my mind just kind of keeps going. So it helped to kind of slow the process down and allow others to become part of the process rather than me just feeling like I have to keep everything in my head.
Just a second. My cat killed my light. Just a second. Give me a second. Just a second.
Sure.
Oh my goodness. Sorry about that. I have two cats, and one decided to um, did many things. Okay, let's try again. Okay, we will record it. What main three problems you decided to solve by Kanban solution?
Um, for me, I really wanted to, I mean, we've been working on this for a while, but one of the values that I saw, and I guess it can be considered a problem, one of the values I saw in Kanban and that way of conceptualizing and making things um, visual and visible um, was an idea, the idea around shared leadership. I think it really um, helped us to be able to have people pull their own things forward, as opposed to, it kind of helps break down the typical hierarchical structure of things, um, and allow others to kind of take full responsibility for things while keeping other people in the loop of what's happening. And so it's not like they just take it, close their door, and it's done. I really like the process as well of it's a different way for me as a head of school. I mean, I have 5 administrators that I work with. Um, so it keeps me it helps with the problem of micromanaging or feeling like I need to, because people take a lot more ownership in what they do. Um, and so I then can check in with them and figure out where they are, what they're getting stuck on, what problems they have, what obstacles they might be bumping up against, and then help them to remove those obstacles to make their jobs flow a lot more smoothly. So I kind of came on board with this right pretty much during COVID, when, you know, you talk about a VUCA world, and that was, that blew that out of the water. So it really helped us to kind of get a sense. I mean, the problem at that point was not really knowing what we were doing, especially as a school and navigating through all of that fog. And so for me, being able to kind of map things out and apply this way of thinking allowed not only me, but the rest of our admin team to really start to conceptualize how we were going to make it through, and also how we were going to be able to communicate how we are going to make it through, because communication at that point was key. We didn't necessarily have to have all the answers because we couldn't have all the answers. So we were able to communicate how we were working on getting the answers, and that really helped establish some trust with parents at that point, who needed something to ground themselves in. So,
Okay, first one was visualization. The second one was increase employee attitude to take more ownership, right? And
correct.
number three, it helped you in COVID time to have some clearer understanding what is happening and what we're going to do and how we can support our parents as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Why you made a choice as a software? You decided to find some software, right? What
Yeah.
was your journey? Okay, you realized that you need something, right? And what was your journey? How did you find Kanban Zone?
Well, I was introduced to the whole kind of agile leadership um, environment by someone named Jeff Burstein, who has connections to Kanban Zone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's really how I learned about it. I did pre-Jeff tried to use another software platform that was not designed for Kanban, but just tried to kind of map things out using it. It was a little
Like
clunky.
Trello or Asana, what was it?
I think we were trying Asana.
Okay.
We were using it, and then I was just dipping my toes in the water of Kanban and trying to apply it. It didn't really make sense because it didn't, I think if I would have known more about it, I would have been more successful. But then once I started working with Jeff, he introduced me to Kanban Zone, and then things just it made the idea of Kanban much more understandable. Um, so that it was kind of handed to me by Jeff, and
Mm-hmm.
I think actually I met Dimitri. He actually came to our school to do a podcast once when he was here in the Berkshires. So it's nice to do
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm. What is your top three features which you really love in Kanban Zone?
I think it's flexibility because we have used some of the templated basic Kanban um, ways of flow. We have also created our own. So my admissions director, kind of we designed our own board so she can track um, prospective families through that flow from inquiry all the way through receiving their enrollment contract. And at any one point, she can look and see how many toddler families, how many preschool families, how many elementary families. So, and then um, we've also started using it with our board of trustees. So we designed a board that um, we can kind of create this strategy to tactics flow. Um, and then starting to get our board of trustees involved with it and starting to use it as a way of reporting on what's happening rather than just writing a bunch of words on a piece of paper and hoping they understand it. So for me, I think the flexibility is huge.
Mm-hmm. How many boards do you have in your organization?
It's a great question. We've dabbled in a lot. I think the ones we're using, we have one for each of our administrators. So five, we have our leadership board, six, we have our board, seven, admissions board, eight. So we probably have 8 to 10 boards that we're using
Mm-hmm.
that are used. We have a couple other that we've tried and used and then have, the new generations we're using now as part of that eight to 10 boards.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, please, more about your workflow because it's so interesting. Like how you're head of school, right? You have an amazing idea, and then like how you share this idea with everybody. How many meetings do you have? Can you share more about your workflow?
Yes. So kind of the way we developed it is that we have um, our main like our we have a strategy to tactics board. So our board of trustees has we look at our goals and our objectives for the organization. And then in this board, we're able to kind of break it down into more digestible pieces. So in this particular board, as it kind of flows to the right, we then have board tactics. So the specific things that the board are going to be working on. Then we have like admin tactics. So our board of trustees doesn't really handle the admin tactics. So once a goal and an objective get down to the admin tactics, those things are then mirrored onto that particular person's board. So for instance, if we're talking about fundraising, and we get down to like our annual fund, which is something that's happening now and it's like in progress, so to speak, then that would actually be mirrored on our my advancement director's board. So then when I have 2 meetings with each of my admin per week, to 2 stand-ups for anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. It's a
Mm-hmm.
time that they walk me through their boards on
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
so it all kind of flows from that big idea that might, that 2 to 3 year project, all the way down into that digestible tactic, then onto their board and having like 1 or 2 conversations about it per week to see what the
Mm-hmm.
progress is. And then that kind of flows back up. So we have, like I said, I have 2 meetings per week for 2 stand-ups with with each admin member.
Mm-hmm.
We have 1 meeting per week of a full admin team. And that's really kind of to see, so everybody's kind of on the same page as what's happening full school wise. I have 2 meetings per week with my board chair, my board of trustees chairperson. So he and I can talk about um, kind of what's on my plate, what's on the board's plate, how he can help support me, how I'm supporting our admin staff. So we've created this kind of a information flow system. So like I'm talking to my board chair twice a week. I'm also talking to my admin twice a week. And it's worked out really well. I was meeting once a week with each admin team member for a longer period of time. And I found that that was beneficial, but I appreciate the shorter, quicker meetings because we always see a little flurry of activity after we meet. So we meet, we touch base, I learn how I can support them, and then we move on and they can do their work. And they're not stuck in a meeting talking to me for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're lucky. Tell me, please, more about communication. Do you use in your organization, do you use emails or Slack or you communicate under cards? Like, what is your communication flow looks like?
um we we use email, well, we use Slack for especially our admin team.
Mm-hmm.
If it's an emergency, we text people.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's just information sharing or questions that aren't aren't an emergency, we use Slack. There's some specific Slack channel. Um, we have not gotten into communicating through cards yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that could be down the line. Um, Different admin team members are using it more robustly than others, so I can
Mm-hmm.
see that happening. But right now we're using Slack for those. But we
Mm-hmm.
are using cards for, we're sharing documents, linking documents into the cards so that so they are kind of holding all of that information and we're not, going to Google Docs and going, flipping between different programs. So it is proving to be, a card is a nice container for a lot of different information. Another feature I really like too is setting up templates for cards. So we go through our um, if we're as we're moving through the flow process and we've created our explicit agreements, um, we can put those right into the cards and not have to retype them every time. So I've found that to be pretty useful.
I like it as well. And what is your number 3 feature?
I think having well, there are a lot of great features for our leadership team that we have once a week, and it's about 45 minutes. It's a little bit longer of a meeting. Um, that's when all the administrators get together. Uh, I also I like how we can have the information in each card be a template, but then each card itself be a template because every year, we have events that just happen every year. So when we get to the end, we can create a template. So the next year, we're not creating the same task list for the event. I mean, it might shift a little bit, but we don't have to retype the 20 different steps because they're already in there. So that ends up saving us a lot of time too.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned about communication. Imagine in my team, I have 6 different countries and we have 12 hours difference, 6, 4, 2. And what we start to use Kanban Zone, all communication is always under cards. And we use Slack when we need to find somebody very quickly, right? But usually all communication, we start communicate and just it's amazing because sometimes I wake up and I see what's going on with some countries, and it's in our case, all communication is under cards right now. We found it very useful for us because we have a big um, time difference.
I can see that. I mean, my board chair and I have used it a little bit, but I would like to dabble with that a little bit more.
We can have a different call and we'll just show our boards and then just share like experience from us and share our experience with you guys, and maybe you'll find it useful.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that'd be great.
Just exchange, yeah, because again, when we can share some like our experience with you and you can share your experience, and it could be very good support to each other, like business to business.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this question, because education industry is very, very interesting for me because I have a teenager, 15 years old, and I'm wondering what is if you explore education industry, what are they struggling with? What is top 3 problems in this industry right now in 2024?
Oh boy. Um, I think I think in general, like I mean, if you look at all the different philosophies, I mean, there's public education, um, and I think public education has its own challenges just because it's such a big system. So I think alignment is one of the big problems in any of the philosophies or pedagogies, whether independent schools or public schools. I mean, I think that is always going to be a challenge. So in the Montessori world, there's an alignment issue. In public school, they have their own alignment issue. So I think um, that's a piece of it. And Jeff and my board chair, Simon and I have been doing a little work with some local public schools and trying to help them to see how using a Kanban process could help them with their alignment. So that's been pretty interesting. So I think alignment, um, there's a problem there or a challenge with that. Um, I think communication is always going to be a problem, an issue. Um, and again, I've used mainly Kanban Zone and Kanban with from an administrative aspect. Um, we have not. There's a lot of work being done using Kanban Zone with students. We haven't because Montessori really has its own way of assessing, and it's really more of a formative assessment, that kind of thing. Um, the agile, I think Montessori herself was a very agile minded person. And so I think a lot of that is baked in to what happens here on a daily basis in our classroom environments. So I've just been trying to use it to align our administrative team with what the goals and objectives are for the organization. Um, so yeah, I think alignment, I think communication. Third problem. And well, I mean, I guess it kind of goes to it kind of pairs with alignment, but um, y- there's a there and it's something we've been working on. I mentioned it earlier as far as shared leadership. I think there's a hierarchical issue that I think could be worked on as far as creating those alignment systems to create more of a shared leadership model as far as a way to do things. Because of the way it makes everything visible and allows people to, it's like a pull system, I mean, that. So um, it allows people to kind of take more ownership in what they do rather than feeling like they're being micromanaged by the person above them. So it's
Mhm.
I think it could be seen as a third issue.
Mhm. Imagine you're on the stage and thousands of head of different schools, public, private schools, are listening to you. What will be your three um, advices for them, like maybe actions, what you would suggest them to do to help them with those all issues, other issues? What will be your personal advices based on your experience for different head of schools?
Hmm. Um, Great question. Um, I think that what three things would I talk to them about? Um, well, I mean, I think I can incorporate three things into this, but really being able to visualize. I mean, everyone has a strategic plan, and some are useful, some aren't. And so being able to visualize a strategic plan or strategic initiative and um, make it visible, make it operational, um, make it so people know what's happening in real time, I think is huge. Too often we spend a lot of money, we create these plans and we put them on the shelf and we look at them every 3 years. And if there's something that we learned a lot through COVID, through the pandemic, but one of the main things is that things are changing and the rate at which things are changing is changing. And so being able to create an iterative process so that what we thought we were going to do last year, that's going to change this year, but hey, we have a process in place that allows us to make that change in real time so that we can adapt and be more innovative and make things happen on a quicker basis rather than just getting frustrated and then putting the book back on the shelf. And so I think there are probably three things in there.
Mm-hmm.
But so make things visible, create an iterative process that you can adapt when needed. Sometimes you don't have to, but sometimes you really want to, or you can create the situation so things can adapt on their own. Um, so I think I had three things in there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And last question, but maybe slightly unusual, like my first phrase today, Happy Monday, because in our organization, Kanban Zone, we focusing on happiness, happiness of our employees, happiness of our customers, happiness of businesses. And I have a unusual question for you. Do you think that when you apply Kanban Zone in your organization, did you increase happiness or maybe not? If yes, why do you think so?
Happiness.
Happiness.
I think if we're thinking about happiness as But if feeling successful is a piece of happiness, then I think yes, for sure. Because we all get stuck sometimes and can't, might be stuck on a problem or stuck on an obstacle or something like that. And so what Kanban and Kanban Zone has allowed us to do is kind of help ourselves to work our way out of that. And I think that creates success. When people can see that what they're doing on a daily basis is tied to something much bigger, I think that creates a sense of accomplishment and therefore could lead to happiness. And it helps people to visually see that they are part of something bigger. For us in the Montessori world, it's, what we're doing on a daily basis is tied to one of our goals or objectives. That's also tied to another international Montessori school in some other country, because they're doing the same thing, maybe on the same day with a similar child, but we're all connected. So I think that it allows, I think that adds to the feeling of happiness as far as being successful and being part of something that is bigger than yourself.
Mm-hmm. What we should improve in Kanban Zone to make you even more happy and make your team even more happy?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, when you get that thing over to when you get that card all the way over to the right and you get the confetti, I think that for me, that took the cake. That was like, we have a lot of fun with that. We had our own noises to that when we get there. Um, I don't I don't know. I mean, I don't feel that I'm using all the features fully yet to know what else or what would be missing. Um,
Mhm.
so I mean, I'm learning about it incrementally. Um, I think again, going back to the flexibility and really being able to like modify templates and design your own boards the way that, as an organization, the way we think, I think is huge. Um, and yes, that's a great question. I don't feel like I know enough about it to know what else I would want.
Do you feel, do you think, for example, if we will create some free master class and where we will show our boards, for example, and some features, and or maybe we'll observe your boards and tell, oh, guys, here you can improve here you can use this one. Maybe something like this will support you and help you to learn more. And what do you think?
Yeah, that would be helpful for sure. 100%. I think that I mean I do work with Jeff on that. So sometimes he will sit in on a meeting with that, sit in on a stand-up that Simon and I have, and he'll like at the end he'll say, oh, by the way, if you think about it this way, then he'll notice where Simon and I are getting stuck in our conversations and give us kind
Mhm.
of real-time feedback. And I think that's huge. Um, I think understanding metrics a little bit too could help.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I like that. I mean, I can click a couple buttons and see something, but I'm sure there's much more that I could see. And the more I learn, I can then, when working with my admin staff, I just introduced, for instance, whip limits, to one of my team members because I did like 7 things in there. And it made a lot of sense to her. So I didn't have to at first because she kind of had just a couple in there and I could see her managing it, but I could feel her getting overwhelmed and I could see her getting overwhelmed. So we talked about whip limits and it was great. She totally got it, but if I would have talked about it earlier when it wasn't an issue, she wouldn't have really understood it. So um, that kind of coaching was pretty, it's pretty invaluable. So I think master classes would be really fun to watch for sure.
Do you think, because we're focusing how to make our exist customer happier, right? And we're thinking about some education because this is my third interview and I hear the same request. And some companies, they want us to give them like some masterclass for everybody, some people, they want to learn first as a head of organization, and then they will teach others. What will be the best way for you?
Good question. I would like to, I mean, I would, a lot of times I like to be the person that shares the information with team members. And at the same time, I don't want to feel that I have to do that. Like they're very capable of watching a class and learning it on their own. So it could be something where maybe they watch it and they teach it to me. Like, because there's nothing like, again, I'm always trying to find ways to kind of break down the hierarchical structure of things. I think that some of that structure is inherent. I think some people need that structure because it makes them feel really uncomfortable if it's not there. I think there's some people that would be very comfortable if it was totally gone. And so, so I'm kind of as a leader, really trying to understand who needs what and how do they need it. And so, I mean, I have my advancement person designed their own board. I didn't have to say anything. She just got in there, played with it, figured it out. Um, and so there's nothing, I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, everyone being able to watch it and teach each other.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for this interview, Todd, because for me, Kanban and agile approach in education, it's very, very interesting. And I live in Tennessee. That's why when you mentioned about Tennessee, which city was your wife from?
My in-laws live in Alcoa.
Mm, I'm from
So,
Knoxville.
oh yeah, so it's just outside of Knoxville.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And we have UT here, 14,000 people, and they have problems with silos communication because they're so big, and from idea to make real results, it takes years. In such organization, they're so heavy and so big, and I'm wondering how they're going to adapt for all changes which we have. And it's just with AI, with everything, with our kids, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I will talk with Dimitri about some master class or something where we can share our experience and support your team and share what we love in Kanban Zone. And if you need any support, always send us messages. We will be happy to make you happy.
Yeah, that sounds great. If you want to, if you want to set up another call and like see how we're using it, and
Yeah,
I'd be happy to show you that as well.
perfect. Thank you so much. I wish you a wonderful and happy week.
All right, you too. Thanks, Maria.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.